As a trophy hunter with limited time who struggles to commit to actually finishing games, raising my completion percentage has been a real uphill battle these last few years. It was only really in December of 2024 that I felt I was finally starting to make some progress after I hit that elusive 55% completion target I set myself all the way back in the summer of 2022. So you can imagine the sheer horror I felt after I discovered that a trophy had been popped on my profile at a friend's house in a game that I had zero interest in playing. All joking aside though, this was something that genuinely really bothered me at the time, so much so that I actually even went to the effort of picking up a copy of the game from work with the idea that I could just go and absolutely no-life this for a few weeks, grind my way to the platinum, and then all would be well. So I installed that 130GB mammoth, and the first night was absolutely awful. I wasn't enjoying my time with the game at all, and I was really frustrated with the idea that all my free time was going to be wasted on this for the foreseeable. It was only really at that point I asked myself the all-important question, what the am I doing? There are so many amazing games out there that have been sitting in my backlog for years while I wait for the right time to start them, and here I am giving all my time and energy to this. This is such an unhealthy attitude to have, and it's one that I'm keen to break. So, how am I going to do that, I hear you ask? By killing my completion, of course. Hello trophy hunters, Tanya here, and welcome back to the channel. The Kill Your Completion challenge has been running for around 8 years on PSN Profiles, and while this challenge isn't actually affiliated with them, my challenge is definitely inspired by them. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept, it's pretty simple. You have a month to choose a handful of games that are sitting at 0% in your backlog, and you work through all of them in that time period. The goal is not to complete or to platinum the games, it's just to push yourself into starting them. It's a challenge that I've always been curious about, and trying to break out of my unhealthy view on completion seemed like the perfect time to satisfy that curiosity. I decided to try this out over the course of February this year, and I split the month into 4 week-long segments and chose one new game to work on each week. The first game that I decided to work on was Dave the Diver. This has been one that I've had installed since it came onto PS Plus last year, but I could just never find the right time to start it. Dave the Diver is a really chill indie RPG that allows you the freedom of deep sea exploration by day and restaurant management by night. The trophy guide on PSN Profiles has this listed at a 4 out of 10 difficulty, requiring one playthrough of around 40 hours. The trophies for the game are pretty straightforward in nature, and they're awarded for things such as completing the story, catching 300 fish, researching dishes, and collecting all weapons. There is also only one missable trophy in the game, and that's simply for eating rations, so as long as you keep that in mind, you don't really need to worry about consulting a guide while you play. I was able to play this for around 11 hours throughout the week, earning 14 trophies and hitting 20% completion, and honestly I had so much fun with it. I really appreciated the humour of the game, and I loved how many different components there were to keep you busy. The change of pace between day and night activities was great for keeping me engaged, and this was a really nice game to work on in the evenings because it didn't really take a lot of brain power, and sometimes after work that is just what I need. Next on my hit list was the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. To some extent, I imagine everyone is familiar with the Dead Rising games, but if not, these are peak PS3/360 era zombie bashers. There is a pretty interesting story from what I've played so far, but most importantly, it's just a lot of fun. I've never actually played the game when it originally released, but this was one I was really excited to try when I heard it was getting a next-gen remaster. There isn't a guide for this on PSN Profiles, but PowerPix has the game listed at a 4 out of 10 difficulty and around 25 hours to complete. The trophies are what you'd expect from this sort of game, and they're awarded for things like killing a certain number of zombies, using certain weapons, or saving a certain number of people. There are actually 16 missable trophies in the game, and all of them relate to either survivors or psychopaths. But as this game requires multiple playthroughs for the platinum and none of them are too time intensive, this isn't really something that I have a major issue with. I only managed to invest 9 hours into the game this week, but I did earn 19 trophies for 28% completion. This is probably the game I enjoyed least from this challenge, if I'm being honest, and that surprised me because this genre is usually one of my favourites. While I could pin this down to me simply not having the same nostalgia for the game that a lot of returning players have, I think the main reason that I dislike this game is due to the time mechanic. You only have 3 days to solve the case, save the survivors, and get back to the helipad for evac. And as someone who loves to side quest and fully complete everything before moving on with the story, I hated having to skip side content just so I wouldn't miss a deadline. Looking at the trophies, I can see that there are a different number of days that you can survive, so I imagine that this gripe is only going to be on my first playthrough, and any subsequent ones I'll have the time to explore properly. Although this is the game that I like the least, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy my time with it, or that I won't go back and finish it at some point. The third game that I decided to work on was Assassin's Creed 2. This is another PS3/360 era game that I missed at the time of release, but I've been told by multiple people that I need to go back and play it because it's one of the best. The Ezio collection is part of the PS Plus game catalogue, and like Dave the Diver, I've had it installed for what feels like forever, just waiting for the right time to start it. For anyone unfamiliar with this title, it is a story of family, betrayal and vengeance set in Italy. According to the trophy guide on PSN Profiles, this is a 3 out of 10 difficulty with no missable trophies and only requiring one playthrough of around 30 hours. The trophy list is very much standard Ubisoft, and it awards trophies for things like completing side activities, finding collectibles, finishing the story, and attacking enemies in certain ways. I only actually managed to get 3 hours of playtime this week, earning 10 trophies for 18% completion, and I'll be honest, I am so disappointed I didn't get more time. Despite not having a lot of time to play, this is probably the title that I had the most fun with, and it's one that I'm really eager to go back and finish. Despite not playing the game at release, jumping into it now made me really nostalgic for that era of gaming in general. In this generation, it's so rare to find a game that pushes you straight into the action, as developers are more focused on making these epic 100+ hour experiences. If we even just use Ubisoft as an example and compare this Assassin's Creed to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Valhalla is estimated around 50 hours for the story alone, and then another 50 hours of grinding territories and killing members of the Ancients if you're going for the platinum. The story and characters are also just a lot less compelling, which makes it feel nothing short of a chore. Taking this trip back into classic Ubisoft has been a really refreshing change of pace for me, and it's definitely a rabbit hole that I'm excited to fall down some more. My fourth and final game for this challenge is none other than Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. Is this cheating to have a new release in what I described as a backlog challenge? Possibly, but since I make the rules, I am willing to bend them for this title. I am a huge fan of the Like a Dragon games, and I have been eagerly awaiting the release of this one. This is actually a spin-off title which sees Yakuza veteran Goro Majima wash up on the shores of a Hawaiian beach with amnesia and get embroiled into a life of piracy while on the search for an elixir of eternal life. Once again, there is no guide on PSN Profiles yet, but PowerPix has this listed as a 3 out of 10 difficulty with no missable trophies and taking around 35 hours to complete. This is definitely a game for those of us who love a side quest, with most of the trophies relating to the completion of sub-stories and side activities, as well as a couple for completing the story and also finding collectibles. Out of all the games I played for this challenge, this was the one I was able to sink the most time into. I clocked up a whopping 25 hours and earned 38 trophies for 55% completion. I had such a good time with this game, and it was a real joy to play. My only very minor complaint would be that the difficulty scaling of this game just felt a little bit off. I'm typically a gamer who likes to play on normal difficulty because I like a balanced playthrough, but I ended up bumping the difficulty up because it didn't really feel like there was much of a challenge during normal gameplay, and that's almost unheard of for me. There was a couple of nasty difficulty spikes though in the Colosseum and during a couple of the pirate battles with the devil flags, and that just kind of made me think the scaling needs tweaked a little bit because something might not be calibrated right. As I said though, this is a really minor complaint that I could solve by changing the settings as and when I needed, so this is definitely still a title that I would recommend picking up for anyone who's interested in the Yakuza or Like a Dragon games. And there we have it, challenge complete. Let's take a look at the final stats for the month and see what impact starting 4 new games has had. In terms of trophies, we started with 6,850 and ended on 6,934, which is an overall gain of 84 trophies. 77 of these were bronze and 4 of them were silver. If any of you eagle-eye viewers out there notice that the math ain't mathin' here, no, you didn't. There may or may not have been a couple of Dark Pictures games played during the month, which may or may not have added a few trophies into the final count. But shh, this isn't about them. As for completion percentage though, this is what I was most interested in. We started off the challenge at 55.77% and we ended up on 55.46%, which was an overall drop of 0.31. That is it. That was all there was. There has been no massive dip in my stats, no irreparable damage done, nothing. I just had a really good time playing games that I've been wanting to play. While this may not have been the traditional earn as many trophies as you can in X amount of time challenge that is popular across the trophy community on YouTube, this has been a really interesting challenge for me to complete, and I feel it's one that is important to change my attitude to games and the way in which I play them. My biggest takeaway from this is that it's just not that deep. Play the new game. Start the game you know you're never going to 100%. Jump around between 5 different games at a time if that's what you want to do. This is a hobby and it's meant to be fun, so do what makes it fun for you. Ultimately, nobody cares as much about your stats as you do, so don't let what other trophy hunters are doing impact the way you play for the worst. And certainly do not waste your time playing a game that you're not enjoying, because nobody's getting anything from this experience. In terms of trophy challenges though, I had a great time with this one, so if you have any recommendations for challenges you'd like to see me attempt next, let me know down below. Also, in reference to some comments I made about games earlier in this video, if you have any recommendations for some good PS3 era titles that is going to hit that nostalgia mark for me and I may not have played, let me know too, because I am dying to get back into like that era of gaming. But thank you all so much for watching, I really appreciate you being here, and hopefully I will see you all in the very next video. Bye!